Hey guys, this is Nate with the TackleTime podcast. Appreciate you tuning in again. Tonight we have a really cool interview. We have Jason Burgess, and as we get in, he and I were talking before the interview, and didn't realize he was actually getting ready for a tournament tomorrow. So it was really exciting, especially for him. Another one for him to be into. And secondly, it was great for us to try and see, what exactly he was doing to get ready, and we learned a little bit about kayak fishing and tournament fishing, but also some really cool gear. And Jason seems like he really has a great handle on all the gear that he's using and how you guys can also apply it too. So we're going to jump into that. I've said it before, I know you guys know it, but before you buy tackle next time, go to tacklebuys.com. We compile thousands of sale listings across the web of gear that's on sale from vendors that want your business. So, if you're looking for crankbaits like we're going to talk about today, if you're looking for a new rod and reel, if you're looking for a new net, if you're looking for waders, if you're looking for kayaks, whatever it might be, get on there, see what it is that you're looking for. If you're looking for a particular brand, you can search for it or narrow it down. But try there first before you go buy gear, because it's going to be on sale if it's listed there. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this interview. All right, guys, we have a special treat tonight. Jason Burgess is here with us. We're going to talk about a lot of bass baits and a little bit of tournament fishing. So, Jason, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Definitely appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
So we always try and start off the interview with an interesting question, something that might resonate with folks. So do you have one special memory fishing when you were young, or even somewhat recently? What's your favorite fishing memory?
Geez, probably, I don't know if it's my favorite fishing memory, but it's definitely the one that sticks with me the most.
Okay.
I was probably 8 years old, and I grew up in a small town in Maine, and I would walk down or bike down to the lake that was, maybe a mile away from my house. And I had a really old spinning rod, and I was casting this, maybe, I don't know, a 16th ounce spinnerbait, maybe.
Okay.
It was tiny, and I loved it. And I hooked into probably a 2.5, 3 pounder, and I finally got him up onto the rocks, and went down to reach and to lip him, and the line broke, and that fish went back into the water, and I could see that spinnerbait that was like my favorite bait. It was the only one that I had. I could see it sitting in its mouth still as it was just looking at me, wondering what was going on. And to this day, I'll never forget how sad I was that I lost my favorite bait. Little did I know that there were hundreds of them, so it didn't really matter. But
talk about a tragic tale, especially when you're that young. That I think that has an impact on you.
Yeah, it was definitely my biggest fish that I ever caught too. And so.
Of course,
I was bent out of shape about the spinnerbait.
So you mentioned to me just before you were jumping on, or we were starting to record here, that you're actually getting prepped for a tournament tomorrow. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a brand new circuit. It's their inaugural tournament. So I live in North Carolina now, so it's a tournament on Sharon Harris Reservoir. It's one of the big lakes out near Raleigh. It's the first tournament. It's a kayak tournament. I don't have a big glitter boat. I do all kayak tournaments and kayak fishing. So, it's their first tournament. It's a 3-hour kind of shotgun type of tournament. It's going to be good though. It'll be fun.
Awesome. No, I'm glad I have a fellow kayak fisherman here on with me tonight. So that's great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Those bass boats sure look pretty nice, but I could never see buying some of the ones that cost you about what a house would. So no, that's awesome.
I mean, there's guys running around in $100,000 bass boats. I'm like, how do you do it? But,
hey man, more power to them. It just ain't for me. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm guessing it's for bass, correct? This is a bass.
Absolutely. Tournament. Yeah. Largemouth. Okay. I don't think there's smallmouth. There's definitely spots in there. I don't think there's any smallmouth in there though.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's a nuclear power plant lake, so the bass get big. I think the smallest thing I've caught out of there has been like a 4-pound, 19-inch fish.
Okay.
Everything's big there.
No, that's great size. That's fantastic. So for anybody listening, and myself included, I've never fished at a tournament before. Can you kind of give us the lowdown as far as how, from A to B, how it all works and where you get started and all that stuff? I think that'd be great to dive into.
Absolutely. So there's a couple ways to get started. So the most popular trail is the kayak bass fishing. I mean, anybody that fishes out of a kayak knows KBF is the one to look at.
Yep.
And they've got a couple different trails that they run. So they've got the red eye bass, which I've never done, never intend to do. And then they've got their challenge series, and they've got their trail series. Their trail series is the 1-2 day events, at a specific lake that you got to drive to, haul all your gear to, that type of thing. Their challenge series is the best way I think, kayak anglers should get started in tournament fishing. Basically with the challenge series, obviously go online, register for KBF. They've got two levels. I believe don't quote me on it. I'm pretty sure it's $30 for the low level and $50 for the middle level. And then obviously they have a lifetime membership as well. The lowest level will get you into the challenge series. I think it's $30 to register, and then to actually enter the tournament fee is another $30. So already you're out $60. But it's a 21-day tournament. So there's no pressure for you to get on the lake on a specific day. If you have a bad day of fishing, it doesn't really matter. Just, put it behind you, get out to a different place. So it's 21 days. It's from the 1st of the month to the 21st. And then they reveal the winner about a week later than that. And prerequisites for the tournament is you have to have the hog trough measuring board or a catch company board. I know it's expensive. I recommend the catch board. The hog trough is, in my opinion, it's pretty garbage. They bend. There's specific rules that you have to have with, when you're using those as opposed to the catch boards. Catch boards are aluminum, so they're not going anywhere.
Sure.
And they actually just released a polycarbonate board that is a lot cheaper. The one I have, I think, was $65, which can be kind of pricey for somebody just trying to get into it, 1 or 2 times. But you fish, and then, let's say we're out on the lake, we catch a fish. So there's an app that you would go on to, and then you're registered through it's called the Tourney X app. You're registered through that app, and you will, take a picture of your fish, and you'll upload it to the tournament site, through that app. And, as opposed to weight, in some of the big boats, competitions, you're doing length now. So it's the length of the fish, best 5 fish of that 21 days. So, if you have a bad day, or, you can't get out on the water every day, or, you get, I don't know, something happens, you get pulled away from the water or something like that, you have, a lot of time to do it. Or, some people like me, if I'm fishing, I'm in the middle of a tournament right now. It's a virtual tournament fishing. That's another week-long tournament. I've already got my limit, but I'm going to use, tomorrow's tournament to not only, help me with the tournament for tomorrow, but also the week-long tournament to hopefully get some bigger fish. So, if you go out and catch 5 at your, whatever your close lake is, but you want to take a trip to something where, the fish are bigger, or, you have a better chance of getting a big fish, you have that, that flexibility. And then, if you fall in love with that, you pay the extra money to do the trail events. There's also the yak bassin. Those are weekend tournaments. And they do one every month. Those are really fun to do too. It's the same type of thing.
Gotcha.
And then, obviously if you're interested in it, check the rules out, make sure you're not going to break any of the rules. They have specific places you can't put your hand on the fish and stuff like that. And, specific ways the fish have to be, on the board, and, that type of stuff, oriented a certain direction. But other than that, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's really easy to get into as well. So.
No, and it's interesting for anybody who isn't aware of any of these particulars. You can just join pretty much any kayak bass fishing group, and you'll see a lot of this stuff just passed around. So you can pick up a lot through just osmosis and not even going. But obviously, you can go online and read all the rules and all that. So no, that was a pretty good primer. Thanks. That I think that definitely fills somebody in who has no experience with kayak bass fishing at all. So
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, there's tons of groups, like especially on Facebook. I mean, the KBF group on Facebook is incredibly welcoming. Chad Hoover, great guy. He runs that page, and he's the owner, operator, CEO of Kayak Bass Fishing. So, it's an awesome group if you want to get, become a part of that.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm in that one too, and I see a lot of good stuff in there. So no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. So you're going out. How far is about the lake from you?
So it's about 35 minutes from me. We're launching at the northern ramp. So it's a little bit further than the one I normally go to. There's 2 ramps on the lake. And realistically, it's kind of uncharted waters for me. I've only fished up there one time. So
Oh, okay.
I'm Google Mapsing as much as I can, and we'll see what happens tomorrow when I'm looking for brush piles and whatnot.
Yeah. No, awesome. Awesome. Okay. So you said the tournament you're is only 3 hours long. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. It's just their first shotgun little tournament.
Gotcha. Okay. So you have 3 hours to rack up as much length essentially. So how many do you get in tomorrow's tournament?
So tomorrow is best 3.
Gotcha.
If I had to make a prediction, I would say it's probably going to take at that lake probably 55 to 60 inches.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, so you is there a lot of competition, especially in a new series like like you're playing in, or do you have any idea?
The tournament director is expecting there to be more than 15 boats there.
Okay.
So, I mean, not a ton of competition. I mean, it's not like some of these KBF tournaments where you'll see, or even, the North Carolina Kayak Association, they have tournaments as well. That's, you'll see 200, 300 kayaks launch.
Sure.
And yeah.
No, okay, gotcha. No, that's super interesting. It's always been something I wanted to do, but I wanted to perfect my fishing game a little more before I got out there and tried to compete. So, but it's an interesting experience, I'm sure, no matter what. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my first tournament, I didn't even catch a limit. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, is a really good experience. And I've done co-angler stuff where I've been the guy on the back of the boat, or been on a buddy's boat, and done tournaments on big boats and stuff. And sometimes, just depending on the group, I recently I spent the last 10 years in California fishing tournaments out there. So
oh wow, okay.
Some of those guys out there are not as necessarily as welcoming to somebody who can't catch a limit, or who can't
sure
keep up, so to speak. But I mean, California is a different beast. We do a whole segment on just California fishing.
Oh yeah, we won't go there. I get it. I'm sure everyone in the audience probably does too. So no, I get it. No, okay. Well, that's super interesting. So I'm just curious, what kind of kayak do you fish out of?
So I fish out of a Vibe Shearwater 125.
Oh, nice. Okay. How do you like? I know it's pretty new. How do you like it so far?
Yeah, so they released it in April. I was part of the pre-order, and
nice.
I don't know. A lot of people have said some negative things about it. I love mine. I've never had a problem with it. It's incredibly stable. It's the most stable kayak I've ever been in. I have no trouble standing, and it cuts through water really well. I mean, I have the pedal system, so it's
sure.
got 3 levels that you can have. It's got the regular paddle, and then you can have a pedal system with it, and then it also has the Bixby jet,
gotcha.
propulsion. So I got the pedals, and I consistently do about 4 miles an hour just cruising.
Nice.
Never really get my heart rate up.
Do you ever look back at just regular paddling and say, I can't believe I ever did this, or do you still really enjoy just paddling a kayak?
Every time I have to paddle a kayak, I think to myself, I can't believe I ever did this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So me and my wife went out last night, and she's just in a regular little Pelican, fun kayak. It's not a fishing kayak or anything. And we're getting pushed around by the wind, and I just turned the boat into the wind and held myself there with the pedals. And she's over here trying to, paddle. And I'm it's ridiculous how that, that I did, probably 16 years without pedals.
Gotcha. So I have to ask, what team are you on?
What do you mean?
Are you on Team Smoke or Team?
Oh, Raven. Team Raven.
Okay.
Yeah, I went with the Raven. I just think the black and the red piping is nice.
Nice. Okay, cool, man. Cool. That's awesome. I was just curious. I'm in one of the Vibe groups, and that's a big theme that everyone always seems to ask. So that's
yeah, I mean, well, Raven catches more fish, so.
Oh no, here we go. So, do you have any other advice for people who want to get started in tournament fishing that that they could learn from, or is it really just get out there and do it? And that's probably what I need to do.
I mean, it's kind of get out there and do it. There's little tidbits, like things that you'll learn along the way, that little tips and whatnot. Like if you're right before you measure a fish, dunk your measuring device into the water. cools off the measuring device. It gets it slick so that the fish doesn't feel that,
Sure.
dryness and whatnot. And they just, they'll stay a little more calm.
Yeah, got it.
One of the things I've learned the hard way a few times, because apparently I'm way too stubborn, is put your net on the side of your measuring board. Because when the fish flops and slips out of your hand and you lose a 20-inch fish back into the water and you didn't get a chance to take a picture of it,
Damn.
On a rough day.
That's a great tip. I'm glad you said that, because that would be me.
Yeah, no, that was my first tournament. It was a Yakabassin tournament. I was having a rough day, didn't catch anything. I pre-fished the day before, and I had a few spots that I was pretty confident I was going to be able to put some good fish in the boat, and nothing was biting.
Gotcha.
I was watching guys around me catch them everywhere, doing the same thing I was doing, but not what I was doing. I wasn't catching fish, and I got one on a crankbait. It was at least a 19-inch fish.
Wow. Okay.
And I pulled him in, got him into the boat, and I lipped him, put him on the catch board. As soon as he was on the catch board, I put my hand on top of him. He flopped 3 times, slipped out of my hand and back into the water, and I never got a picture of him. That's
too bad.
Yeah, it happens though. I mean, it happens to everybody. It's you just if you're gonna fish out of a kayak, you have to get comfortable with losing things out of the boat.
Yeah, leashes are the best. Well, hopefully it's only fish instead of all your gear.
I almost had one kick 2 of my rods into the water the other day.
Oh man, I gotta invest in some paddle leashes and some rod leashes too. That's been on my list.
Yeah.
I haven't done it. So obviously you're a big bass fisherman. Is there any other species you like to fish for?
I don't mind crappie fishing. I don't know. Since I was a kid, bass have always just been that, that go-to for me. That
Gotcha.
It's as much of a mental game as it is, a physical game. And, you have to be able to think about changing conditions and water color and clarity and, lure color, and maybe you picked a lure that's got a tight wobble when they want a big fat balsa wobble or something like that, and it's just so much thinking that it's always kind of attracted me. I mean, anybody can sit out in a crappie rig with 5 rods in the water and wait for them to bite. But,
well, I can't disagree with that. There is some finesse on each side, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, and some of the guys that I know are pulling in 15, 16-inch crappie, and I'm just like, that's a ridiculously big fish.
For sure. Yeah.
If I want to go consume a few alcoholic beverages, always responsibly, I'll go catfishing. I'll just go throw a chicken liver into the water, and maybe something will bite it, maybe it won't. But I'm gonna catch something, right?
They're great for fish fries. That's my favorite. But
absolutely, yeah.
Some people don't eat them. I know a lot of people do, but no. Okay, cool. So you have a couple pieces of gear in mind that you wanted to talk about tonight, which I'm sure from all the experience you have out fishing tournaments and for fishing bass, as long as you have, I'm sure you can give us some good idea on how you use them and some of the best ways and how you're going to catch fish with them. So what did you have to show us tonight?
So I got a couple frogs and some deep diving crankbaits, just some of the stuff that I'm kind of planning on implementing tomorrow. Just kind of talk through that type of stuff.
Sure.
Where do you want to start?
I guess we'll start with the frogs. You might as well jump right in.
Okay, good, right? Because frog fishing is the best, right? I'm absolutely addicted to frog fishing. So
are you? Okay.
Frog fishing is my way to go. I don't know how well you can see this. I don't know how the lighting is. So this is by far my favorite frog. It's a river to sea bullywah too. I've got I think this is mud bug color maybe. I've got this 4 or 5 different colors in that one. And out here, the lakes I fish, we got a lot of tules, cattails, a lot of people call them over here on the East Coast. I'll just throw it up into those, as deep as I can get it without getting hung up. Some of it's chance, some of it's luck, and sometimes you get wrapped around stuff and you got to go in and get it. But I feel like the bullywah is I mean, it's kind of just the best overall frog that I've found. Walks really well, gets through cover really well. The one thing it probably doesn't do really well is it doesn't spit a lot. It doesn't have a lot of, commotion on the top of water. Right. But it's got a super tight walk to it. And especially, I haven't trimmed this one. This one's brand new, but, you trim this, take the skirt and, you got it tied up to your rod. You trim the skirt right about the right about where the
Okay.
eyelet is for the line.
Mhm.
So I'll trim that about right there. It gets that nice and shortened up, and that has a really nice wobble to it. It's go from straight, and it's cutting 180 degrees each time it goes, and maybe
Gotcha.
4 inches of movement in the water. And then the other one I got here is a Spro poppin' frog, and it's still wet apparently. So I don't think anybody can talk about frogs without talking about the Dean Rojas line that Spro has. This one I have trimmed down, so and you can see it's right there where the line tie is.
Gotcha. Okay.
These walk really well, but they also have a really good pop to them. It's not, you see some of the like the Booyah Pop and Pad Crasher. That's got a lot of violence to it, is probably the best word to use.
Sure.
When it pops, and it's subtle, but it's still enough to to trick a fish into thinking that there's a dead shad up there. And I primarily only use the pop and shad. I believe this is a something gill, sexy gill maybe.
Okay.
But it's a shad, kind of a shad pattern. It's got a black back, silver bottom, and it's orange in the front. I primarily, for pop and stuff, I'll only use shad colors. Even if I'm going to a lake that, primarily has bluegill, I'll still use a shad color. I don't think they mind. It's, more, it's more of that lateral line than it really is the sight. And, anybody who's familiar with frog fishing will tell you, your hookup ratio depends on how well the fish can see it, not necessarily, if they're going to be able to come up and get it or their mouth or whatnot. I've caught pretty small fish on that. A lot of people will say, hey, frogs only attract big fish. Well, I've caught plenty of, 12 to 14 inch fish on them. It just depends on if they can get their mouth open around it and,
Sure.
And locate it. Some of the, what I've found, some of the younger fish, the smaller fish, they don't locate it quite as well as the bigger ones do. But if I need a big bite, I'm going to a frog.
Okay.
There's a lot of truth behind, the fact that it does attract bigger fish. And I mean, I'm super unconventional when it comes to frogging. I have what I have that I like, but most people will say, hey, got to throw it on nothing shorter than 7.6 and nothing weaker than a heavy, right? So a lot of people will throw it on extra heavy. I throw mine. This is a 13 Fishing Fate. It's a 7.1 medium heavy.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a huge guy. I'm definitely, big enough to jack them with a heavy. I find this is a little bit lighter, so it's a little easier to walk with.
Gotcha.
And then it's got it's a 7:1 gear ratio. A lot of people will say you got to have 8, got to get out of there quick. I find that I don't walk the frog as well if I have an 8. I just feel like the reel's moving it too fast. Like I said, that's unconventional. A lot of people will say you can't throw it on a medium heavy. It's not enough to pull the fish out and turn the fish around. I've never had a problem. Most of my bigger fish is, and this will be the first thing I pick up tomorrow when I'm out on the water is this frog.
Gotcha.
So, and I never have any issues with big fish. I never have any issues with, turning them, getting them out of cover. And I've never had a problem with it. So some people say you got to throw it on an extra heavy or a heavy, and I don't know. I like the medium heavy, especially if you're smaller. If you're a lot of women are getting into fishing a lot more, which I love. It's great. I love that my wife wants to go out with me all the time. If you're smaller framed, if you're like 5'1", 5'2", 120, 130 pounds, medium heavy. Do not go to a heavy rod. You're just not going to have you don't have the weight and the strength to get behind the rod enough to really hammer it home. And anybody that's frog fish knows that's the most exciting hook set in the world. And I don't think I've ever set the hook harder than when I'm fishing a frog. So,
okay.
But
so,
I've never had any problems with the medium heavy.
So how do you like to use it? Obviously you throw it in the cover, but that's the first step. So what do you like to do after? What seems to work well for you?
So with the bullywah, I'm throwing it into cover. Now, if I'm throwing it into matted cover, I'm just going to drag it on top of the mat. Maybe pop it with my reel a couple of times. If it's going over mats, you're probably not going to walk it real well. just because it's, it's kind of sliding and gliding. So I'll just pop it with the reel, and, just kind of get it jumping through the mats a little bit. I'm probably one of the slowest frog fishermen you're going to see. I don't like to fish them fast. There's no point to fishing them fast. It's supposed to look like a wounded bait fish. It's supposed to look like, a wounded bluegill or something that's, it's hurt in the water. There's no point in fishing it super fast and getting it out of the strike zone. So, maybe, I'll pop it with the reel, give it a quick turn on the reel, and then wait 1, 2, and then maybe 2 turns on the reel, wait 1, 2, just to kind of get the fish to, realize there's something, hey, up on top of that mat, and it looks like an easy meal. And,
Sure.
They'll come up and they'll bust up the mat and come up and get it. Now, if I'm throwing it into open cover, I'm throwing it into tulies or something like that, where I'm coming out of the grass line or something like that. I'm walking. Yeah. I don't even really pause it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm just hitting it. I'll probably walk it anywhere from 10 to 15 feet from whatever cover I'm fishing out of. Just depends on the time. A lot of frog fishing goes into what happened at the nighttime, right?
Sure. Sure.
If you got, right now we're dealing with a full moon all night long, pretty much. I think tonight's going to be like a 3/4 moon. So, if the fish have a 3/4 moon or, full moon like that, they're going to be feeding all night long.
Sure.
It's cooler. That's the time to go fishing. Go fishing when it's full moon at nighttime, and you're going to catch some big fish. But something like tomorrow night or something like that, those fish are going to be keyed back in on stuff like that, because they're going to have gone all day probably without feeding too much, with the sun being up and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you find those places where they're, the first thing I'm looking for if I pull into, a little cove or whatnot, I'm looking for tulies with shade. Specifically at Sharon Harris, they have a lot of primrose.
Okay.
And if I can find a place where the primrose comes to a point and it transitions to, the tulies, the cattails, and there's shade, there's going to be a bass there.
Gotcha.
And there's not a doubt in my mind. The transition points are great spots. If you're fishing a mud bottom and you've got a place where hard bottom is, there's probably a fish there. Any place that you can find cover. And then, during the summer, obviously out here, it's 95, 96 degrees every day. Especially on a lake like Sharon Harris with the nuclear power plant, it's always just a little bit warmer than most lakes. So, water temp will probably be 91, 92 when I get up there tomorrow.
Sure.
And, that's quite a bit of heat. And, they're going to go to the biggest, thickest place of cover they can. And you just gotta be able to get the frog back there, and they're going to bite. I mean, sometimes, you go early mornings and whatnot, and, early morning on a full moon, you're probably not going to get hit a lot on top water. You're probably going to have to slow it down, look for, some sort of reaction bite or whatnot. But
sure. Okay.
Yeah, if I pull into a cove, first thing I'm looking for is shade, tulies, and, specifically at this lake, I'm looking for primrose that transitions to tulies.
So you're fishing in the cover
points,
and then kind of walking it out. Do you have any luck fishing, say, parallel to all the weed cover that you already have there, or do you normally fish right into it and pull out?
So when I first pull up, that's the first thing I'm trying to do is fish into it and then pull out of it. If it's an entire shaded bank, if the bank is shaded, then I'll try rolling up and down the bank and just keeping it right outside the weed line and seeing if something will come out and get it. But it really just depends on how shaded it is. If it's not shaded, I'm not gonna do that. Just there's little to no chance that they're gonna come out into the sun to get it unless they're really feeding.
Sure.
Maybe prefrontal conditions, yeah. If I can see the storm coming in or something like that, I'll do that just because they're feeding.
Sure.
They sense that pressure change and they're trying to get out there and get the fish. But yeah, I will fish it that way. I don't often do it, but if the bank is shaded, I'll run it up and down the bank.
Cool. Okay.
If I'm more likely to run a chatterbait or something like that underwater along the weed line though.
Okay. No, that's all. That's all great info, and there's a lot to unpack there. I'll probably have to listen to that twice to make sure I get it all. So
Not a
there's some
problem.
good stuff. So thanks for that. Now you also had some crankbait or a crankbait you want to talk about tonight. Did I?
I do, yeah. I got a couple crankbaits here. I'm gonna do a shameless plug, I guess here.
No, it's fine.
13. Actually, we'll go with the KVD first because this is probably my favorite. This is a 6XD. Just deep diving crankbait. Get down there to 15-ish, 15, 16 feet down.
Okay.
Like I said, I primarily fish shad colors. So I have this in sexy shad. I mean, not a lot to it. It's it's tried and true. It's they've been hitting fish on these for probably the last 15 years, and they haven't really changed much on them because they work. I always have rattles. No point not to. Every once in a while, you get a really tough bite. Where you're, you want something that doesn't rattle. But I mean, if that's the case, then I'll go to something more subtle, or I'll slow down and throw a drop shot or something, and move really slow or something like that.
Okay.
So this is the Troll Hunter from 13 Fishing. So this just came out. This was their iCast this year. One of their baits at iCast this year. So this one it dives 15 feet. It's their Troll Hunter 70. So it's a smaller one. I believe they have a 90 as well with it. These things are awesome though. So I had the opportunity to throw this around the other day. It's got a really, really tight wobble, super sticky hooks. They really did a good job on this, and the paint on it is awesome.
It looks like
I like River to Sea. I feel like River to Sea does a really, really good job with all their paint, and I feel like this 13 Fishing is right up there. I mean, it's they contoured the eyes, they got all the lines right.
No,
I don't know if you can see it, but down on the bottom here, it's got some like cross hatching on there.
Yeah. Yep.
It just looks really, really good. I haven't caught anything on it. This is probably what I'm going to tie on tomorrow to get out there. With it being summertime, it's hot. We're looking at fish going deep, and if I can't catch them on a frog, if I'm fishing out there for an hour and a half with a frog and I don't catch anything, I got to make that decision to change, and I'll get out there and I'll start hitting the main lake points and whatnot, or looking for brush piles and stuff, and dragging that thing along. I like to get it down deep and just bang it off the bottom. I find that's pretty easy. You can get real complicated with these. You can start, fishing suspended fish and stuff like that. I don't know. I've never had great luck doing it. Maybe that's my fault. I probably don't read my graphs as much as well as I probably should. But realistically, when it comes to fishing deep diving crankbaits, you're, having good electronics is what's going to set you apart. If you've got, and kayak fishermen are notorious for this, get what you can afford, obviously. Don't stretch yourself out to, have something that you probably shouldn't, be buying or whatnot, but,
Sure.
Get the best you can afford. I went out, I got a Garmin, the SV7. I think it cost me $350, maybe $400, something like that.
Sure.
And the side view, I was debating, do I really need it? Yes, you do really need it. It's incredible. It works really, really well.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, having, that's your first step if you're fishing deep diving crankbaits, is have good electronics, because, I've got, my personal best out here is, 20 and a half. And the only reason I caught that fish is because I could see the brush pile down there, and I could see that he was down about 14 feet of water on the brush pile, and threw a deep diving crankbait down through there, and he came out and got it. And,
wow.
It's just, having good electronics really, really does help when it comes to, fishing deep, and really any tactic fishing deep. You want to have good electronics. But that's the first step is get on your electronics and start graphing around, look for those points where it comes up, on the main lake points and whatnot. And then look for, brush piles or humps, or, big drop offs is another one. If you can find ledges and stuff like that, obviously you want to fish that stuff. But, I'll start with a deep diving crankbait. If I can't, if I'm not getting hit on a crankbait, or if I find fish and I catch maybe one or two, and then the bite kind of dies off a little bit, I'll slow down a little bit and I'll go to, something like this. It's I want to say this is a KVD Rage Swimmer maybe. And then it's just on a little underspin here.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it's 1/2 ounce. I'll go to that. I'll slow it down a little bit, and then kind of pick apart my angles around whatever piece of cover I'm fishing or whatever point or whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll start with the deep diving crankbait, and then if that's too much, or the rattles in it are too much or whatnot, I'll move on to that.
So do you ever switch? So I think for a lot of people listening, a lot of times what I'll describe as a cranberry bog, where they don't have a real deep lake, but it's somewhat large, but doesn't have a lot of depth. So it might only be 10 foot at the deepest part. What would you suggest to them if they're looking to try and replicate your technique, but don't have the depth? Would they go with if they have a 10-foot lake, would you go with a 10-foot crank, 10-foot deep dive, or would you do something different? What would you do?
Yeah, so you could absolutely go with a 10 or even a 7, something that goes maybe 7 to 9, 7 to 9 feet. Or if that's the case, so the reason that I would go with deep diving crankbaits is when I have 15 to 25 feet of water that I need to fish.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, if I can get away with throwing a square bill, I prefer to throw a square bill all day long.
Okay.
I just find it easier to throw. You don't have to, come up 25 feet from the bottom of the lake,
Sure.
fishing a deep diving crankbait. If it's a lake that's 10 feet deep, I'll throw on a squirrel bill that runs 5 feet. Run that over the tops of whatever cover it is. Depending on what your weather is like, if you're looking at like really hot days, really hot water, water temperature is really high. So the higher the water temp, the more active the fish are. Their metabolism's higher. They're trying to feed. They've got more. They're trying to get as much food as they can. So when I'm fishing, something that's 7 to 10 feet deep at its deepest point. Normally you can run about half the water column at a place like that. If it's 7 feet deep, I'll run, 4 feet on my, my gear. And then I'm going over these, over the brush pile or, over the hump or, realistically, if I find a good brush pile and, nothing's biting at, square bill level or something like that, I'll probably throw a jig.
Gotcha.
Change it up a little bit, throw a jig into the brush pile or Texas rig worm or something like that.
But, okay. Yeah. No, that's all great info. And I ask because I don't have a ton of experience with deep diving crankbaits, but I do have some of the shallow ones that I've used a lot with no success, it seems like. So, I'm asking these questions somewhat selfishly, but also because I know people are probably thinking that, for their own lakes or whatever that they're fishing. So I got to ask. So no, that's great info. So thanks for sharing. That's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to crankbaits, my search bait will be a square bill. Normally, I'm super confident with them. I throw them around wood. Anytime you can throw a crankbait around wood, you're most likely going to get it. Find some laydowns, find some newer wood, something that's looks like it's fallen down maybe in the last, 5 to 6 years.
Sure.
Maybe still got some leaves on it and stuff like that. Start throwing crankbaits, start throwing your squirrel bills around that. And even, some of the crankbaits that are, just your shallow diving crankbaits, you do the same thing with those. Anytime you got grass lines, and then this is not necessarily a late summer thing, but kind of a late spring, early summer, lipless crankbaits are great on grass lines. Throw it into the grass line, let it kind of sink down into the grass and just rip it out. And then when you rip it out, be careful because that's when the bite's going to come. You'll feel it and hit it. That's pretty tried and true. And shameless plug again, 13 Fishing just came out with a new lipless crankbait as well. I believe it's the El Diablo is what it's called.
So I got to ask, you have some type of
connection with 13 fishing, I'm guessing.
I do not. I have
Oh,
no
okay.
connection with 13 fishing. But if they're listening, I would love to have some sort of connection with 13 fishing.
13 fishing, reach out to Jason. They want to.
Yeah, they
talk
did a really good job at ICAST this year of getting their, you know, really good products out. You know, my other rod here has 13 fishing on it as well. I guess I'm running an Origin reel on this one.
Oh, okay.
It's got a chatterbait on it right now. It's just one I wasn't able to switch out before we started, but you know, this is what I'll throw those deep diving crankbaits on. It's a 7-foot medium heavy moderate, and then I go 7:1 gear ratio on that, or excuse me, 7:3:1, same thing. No, I like to go a little bit faster. It gets it down there a little bit quicker. For the deep diving ones, you got to go medium heavy though. A lot of people, you know, will throw crankbaits on a medium rod. For the deeper ones, you got to go medium heavy. You're going to break fish off. And don't run, just generally speaking, if you're throwing treble hooks, moderate action rod.
Okay.
If you're throwing single hook, you run a fast action rod. I mean, you can do trebles on a fast, but when that fish goes and gives you those head shakes, you know, they're more apt to, when the rod snaps back, because it's that fast action opposed to that moderate action.
Yeah.
It'll pull the hooks out of their mouth a lot easier. So
Gotcha. No, that's another good piece of info, because that probably explains why I keep losing a whole bunch on the wrong action rods. So that's cool.
So I would say probably 6 or 7 years ago, I actually got really into, you know, kind of the philosophy behind bass fishing. I had just kind of done it. And I kind of got real deep into, you know, the philosophy of why we do the things that we do, and why you see these guys, you know, going out in FLW and, you know, the BLF and Major League Fishing and all these things. And they're just absolutely destroying fish. You know, they're bringing in, was it Brandon Polinick on the Bassmaster just brought in like a 28-pound bag, just ridiculous amount of you know, smallmouth bass. And, you know, I really started to dive deep into rods and reels and, you know, what pairs well with what, and, you know, why we do the things we do. So there's definitely a lot there you could talk about, but, you know, pairing the right rod with the lures and the lure weight and line weight is actually really important.
No, and that's exactly it. And no pun intended, but you can get so far into the weeds in fishing that
absolutely.
It's you know, it just overcomes you. And the problem is, like, you can't really break into the chunks. And that's what these podcasts are meant to do, is, you know, when somebody listening, they can kind of say, okay, well, you know, I have my rod, I have this, but I don't have this crankbait. Maybe I'll go try that. And, you know, you put one piece in place at one time. You don't figure everything out instantly. You know, you have to kind of get one thing at a time, and you add another step, and you add another step, and you add another lure, and you kind of piece things together, you know, because you can't do it all, because it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much subtle nuance to everything in fishing, that this whole podcast, for anybody listening, is supposed to make it approachable. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So people like you who are nice to come on and share all this info, you know, there's a ton of, it can get a little technical at times, but there's a reason for it. So it's just, you know, you kind of have to try and get it go.
Yeah. So when I'm talking to new fishermen, and, you know, I'm on a few pages of, you know, some bass fishermen that are pretty new, you know, they'll ask, you know, these questions about, you know, how do I get into it? What do I do? How do I, you know, start into this? My recommendation is pick one thing that you think is cool. If you think crankbaits look awesome, cool. Pick
That's
crankbaits.
A good suggestion. I agree.
If you think chatterbaits are cool, then throw chatterbaits. You want to throw big Huddleston swim baits or these big, you know, handmade custom swim baits, then pick those. But pick one thing and then become an expert at it.
Sure.
Figure out every single thing that you can about it, every nuance, every, you know, little tip and trick that you can possibly figure out with it. And then once you feel like you can go out there every day and catch them on it, switch to the next thing. Because at that point, you know, you do that 6, 7, 8 times, you know, different techniques. And now, you know, you're at a point where you have enough experience to think, you know, hey, maybe I'll go fish a tournament now. You know, maybe I'll go try a tournament. And confidence, when you're tournament fishing, confidence is the big thing. You know, you have to have confidence in what you're doing. You can't get sloppy, and you got to be focused.
Sure.
You know, and when you've completely mastered 5, 6, 7 different types of fishing, no matter what, you're going to have confidence in something.
Sure.
Because
Yeah, you always have
you can
somebody else.
absolutely, you can go out there and you can say, I've been catching them on this for the last 3 months or the last month, or however long you've taken to fish it. I know what I need to do. I'm confident in it. I'm just going to go out and do it. It's a game changer,
Sure.
when you see guys out there, if I'm having a rough day, the worst day of fishing that I could possibly have, I haven't put anything in the boat and I just need a fish, I need a confidence fish, wacky rig Senko all day long.
We'll have to get
That's
somebody
just
on to talk about the wacky rig. That's
yeah,
for sure.
it's the one thing that I just know that I can go out and catch fish with. But yeah, it's about confidence though. You just gotta be confident.
That's awesome. No, you know what? There is so much here that I think if we do any more, we're gonna blow everybody's minds, because mine's about filled up with all I can handle in 1 hour. So this is awesome. So thank you again for jumping on. This was really great. You dropped a lot of information here that, like I said, I'll probably have to listen to at least a couple times to get it all and really try it. So I don't know. Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have anything online where people can go and find you?
So I have been told by a few people I should start a YouTube channel. So I'm thinking of filming my inaugural YouTube video, I guess. Yeah. Episode video, whatever it is, tomorrow. I was thinking about
cool.
doing the Sharon Harris tournament tomorrow as my first video.
Awesome.
I'm thinking Red Blood Fisherman is what the name is going to be. I'd like to, I think, fall under that. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm always open to questions, comments. I'm pretty good about getting back to people. Especially if you're asking me about fishing, I'm definitely always down to talk about fishing. So
nice. Okay.
And I love helping people learn. It's, I was, like I said, I think I probably started fishing when I was like 6 years old.
Wow.
And,
Okay.
worm and bobber out there, just, casting away, and my dad's watching me, and, it was just one of those things that, I want to teach everybody else everything that I know about it, because I want everybody else to be just as successful as I am. It's no greater joy than when, I've told my wife, hey, cast it to that stump and then do this. And then she just whacks a 3-pounder, 4-pounder. You know what I mean? It just
nice. That's awesome. No, it's a good feeling.
Yeah. So
no, that's awesome. Well, I'll make sure to drop links to your Instagram and Facebook if you'd like, and people can reach out to you, say hello, and I'm sure you'd be happy to talk to them at some point. So that's
absolutely
cool. If you end up getting the YouTube running, you got to let me know so I can make sure to drop a link on that one too. So
absolutely. Yeah. I'm, like I said, I'm going to set it up probably tonight, and then I got the GoPros ready and everything. So
cool.
We're going to make it happen tomorrow.
You're a professional already. You haven't even started.
I'm trying. I'm far from professional. Do you mind if I shamelessly plug a couple companies real quick?
No.
I got some discount codes people can throw out too if you've
cool.
got
no, by all means, if you have gear you like and it can help the audience, go ahead, throw them out, my man.
Perfect. Yeah. So Woo Tungsten is one of my sponsors on their pro staff. They've got their Never Chip series. It's great. It's the tungsten weights that I use when I'm out pitching and flipping. And they've also got a lot of merchandise on there, a lot of, their branded merchandise, like their fishing shirts and their hats and stuff like that. Menace Baits is a jig company that sponsors me. They're pretty new to the fishing scene. Their team, I'm part of their pro staff team as well. And they do kind of in-house team tournaments, as well as their part of the virtual tournament fishing. What's cool about their jigs is that they're free swinging. So it's just a regular 4/0 hook. So you can throw whatever trailer you want, Texas rigged, as opposed to with a weed guard with an exposed hook. Gotcha. So it's a lot more weedless than, say a regular jig. And I got some discount codes I can throw out if you've got a way to put,
yeah, for sure,
description in a description or something like that, so you guys can get some discounts on that stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. No, I'd be happy to. And like I said, if it can help people listening, which obviously saving a little bit of money is always a big help. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I think we can all agree, supporting the small guys doesn't matter if they're a small company that makes jigs or a small company that makes whatever it might be. Those are the folks that really kind of push the needle. 13 Fishing isn't a huge company and they make a lot of cool stuff. And
there's a lot of other
Yeah.
innovative companies out there that are really pushing the limits. So no, I'm more than happy to get their names out there. So I'd be happy to.
Perfect.
Is there anything else we didn't talk about that you think somebody should know about any of the gear or anything we talked about tonight that you want to share before we jump off tonight?
I mean, I don't think there's anything else. I just blacked out for the last hour, so just been talking about fishing. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's fishing's confidence. I mean, yeah, you know, you can watch a YouTube video about, you know, how to fish a specific lure, but you got to get out there. You got to feel it. You got to, you know, see what it feels like to do it right, to do it wrong. You know, and anytime you're learning everything, you got to get hung up a few times on something.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
you
No,
know, that just helps out.
I couldn't agree more. You're right. You just got to go out and try. So,
Yeah.
well, Jason, we'll talk here in just 1 minute. Thank you so much again for coming on tonight. And we'll make sure to drop links for all the what you have and where people can find you online there too. So, guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.